winter weather is an annual challenge that we have to contend with every year in this area. But how ready are you? Paul Servatka with the College of DuPage and Sabit Abbasi with the DuPage County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management are here to help us prepare. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Paul, can you tell me a little bit about your background and what you do with College of DuPage?
Well, I've been at the College of DuPage for just under 30 years. I'm a professor there, and I teach a number of courses from weather forecasting through more advanced meteorology. We also have a strong focus on emergency management and preparedness, so we are really concerned about making sure that the public is aware of all the threats that weather can bring.
That ties in with what you do, Sabit. Can you tell us a little bit about how your office is incorporated with severe weather?
Absolutely. Now, with our office, we take the all hazards approach, which, we don't just focus on winter weather, what we're talking about today, but everything. So we work with our municipalities, we work with our residents to prepare them for severe weather threat, winter weather emergencies, and anything that can happen to them.
Paul, what would you say makes COD's meteorology department unique or different?
Well, COD for community college is the most advanced weather program in the nation. We have 2 full-time professors and a number of adjuncts. In addition to that, we offer an extremely widespread amount of courses. We also have an internationally renowned website where we offer professional level meteorological information. So our Next Lab site, as it's called, weather.cod.edu, is used by meteorologists and forecasters all over the country and some other parts of the world as well.
And I know Wheaton's Public Works Department uses that as well as one of their tools for...
We do a lot of work with Wheaton. We do a lot of work with the Office of Emergency Management here in DuPage County, where we do a lot of severe weather training. So we've been involved with various programs for 25 years.
Can you talk a little bit more about how your 2 agencies are involved and how they work together?
One of the things we do together is teach severe weather spotter classes. So, Paul works in taking the students out and doing the actual hands-on, and then we also teach some of the classes at our office. So, people can find out about upcoming classes on our website. It's protectdupage.org. We teach the basic weather spotter class, and then we also partner with Paul in teaching the advanced spotter class. It's called the Advanced Annual Weather Seminar, and we do that annually.
So if people have an interest in learning more and becoming a weather spotter, is that something they could find out more about on your website?
Yeah, so it could be someone who is just interested in weather, a very novice person who's just interested in learning, to someone who's really advanced, who has really advanced knowledge, or who really wants to learn all the different forecasting models and find out about all the different Doppler radars that are out there, dual polar and stuff like that. So people can take these classes, learn those skills, and use them during their use the skills that they learn.
I think if they just Google DuPage severe weather, they'll find links to these events. You can do College of DuPage Meteorology, and you'll find a lot of information about our programs and opportunities for advanced classwork in weather forecasting or severe weather.
Great. Now, to get us started on how people can be prepared for severe weather, Paul, can you kind of go over what the hazards are that people will face in the winter?
Well, as we go into winter weather, and there's a lot of terminology that we can use, but really the major hazards would be travel impairment. So anytime we have restrictions in visibility due to heavy snow or due to fog or even drifting and blowing snow. We're talking also about very cold temperatures. So we have something known as wind chill advisories or wind chill warnings. That could be life-threatening. We also talk about maybe some ice storms. So ice storms can be extremely hazardous in terms of impacting society, knocking out power, tree limbs down. So any combination of those type of events can be associated with the winter storm. And there's a number of ways that you can be informed about upcoming winter weather. But really it's the heavy snow and the travel problems. It's the visibility, it's the cold temperatures, and then ice.
Can you talk about, I know whoever is forecasting the news, or you'll hear on the radio about warnings and watches and different types of them. Can you kind of go through what the different meanings are of like a winter storm watch, a winter storm warning?
The most important thing that people need to understand is that the watch, whether it's for severe weather or it's for winter weather, is usually a chance to be prepared. People, when they hear that there's a watch, means they need to be paying attention to upcoming changes in the weather and start, as you know, take plans of action. What are they going to do? What are they preparing for if they need to have additional supplies? So in the winter, the watch is usually maybe 24 to 48 hours in advance. So what's going to be happening tomorrow? The warning is more impending threat. So when a winter weather is a warning is issued, that means the event is either taking place now or within the next few hours. Now, there is also something known as an advisory. An advisory is the same thing as a warning with just a little bit less in terms of its impact. So it's a little less life-threatening, unless, of course, you're driving, and then it's extremely important to be aware of an advisory. But an advisory, again, is a short time frame. So pay attention to what those statements are, whether it's heavy snow or blowing snow or visibility restrictions or extreme cold. Those would be advisories or warnings. Just warning is the highest level of threat.
Okay, Sabit, can you talk a little bit about how your agency tries to get out the message about watches and warnings and where people can turn to get those?
So we work very closely with the National Weather Service and with the College of DuPage in terms of getting the terminology, make sure everyone's on the same page. We understand the terminology. And so what we do is we take that information and we craft messages that we can relay and send it out to our residents so that when a winter weather warning is issued, well, what does that mean? It's really important for people to understand the differences. But the key here is some of the steps you take to prepare for whether it's a warning, a watch, or advisory, some of the steps are the same. You know, making sure your cell phone battery is charged, making sure the gasoline in your car it's got a full tank. So regardless of what's issued, you just want to make sure you're checking some of those things so you are prepared. And so that's one thing we do. You know, we do interviews like this. We share messaging on our website or on social media, just letting people know here are some ways they could protect themselves and be safe.
I think a really important point is when the National Weather Service issues a watch or an advisory or a warning, that people need to read the whole message. A lot of times people get something over their cell phone and they go, oh, there's a weather watch or there's a weather advisory, but they don't read what that means because in each of the statements there is a description of the hazard that's coming up. There's a timing statement, and then there's a call to action. What should you as an individual person do in preparation for this event? So we really encourage people to either look at the Weather Service or come to the College of DuPage weather site or find some site that has the entire message so that each individual is responsible to know what they should be doing.
That's really important, especially if you're traveling, you're going to work, or you're just going to visit someone. Look at the area, you know, as Paul mentioned, it provides a description. What areas are affected, you know? So you could see if you have to travel through that town, that municipality, you could maybe avoid going through that area. Or maybe plan for your travel at another time because now you've seen the advisory, the warning, and you see, okay, this is the time period. Well, maybe it's not a good idea to travel right now. We could delay that. So that's something to think about.
It's kind of important, this whole idea of an advisory. Some studies have actually shown that for travelers, there can be as many or more fatalities and injuries in an advisory as there is a warning. Typically, people will respond, oh, warning, maybe I'll stay home. But in advisories, when they go, oh, it's not that bad, and they go driving, well, 2 or 3 inches of snow coming down in a short amount of time can really be impactful. So I just really want to underscore that when there is a weather advisory for snow or for ice, that driving is extremely hazardous. And I know all of our viewers here are probably the good drivers. It's everybody else that's the insane person. Right. So just be aware that even in an advisory, driving is extremely hazardous.
So advisories are something you should take seriously.
You should take them seriously.
And they can change minute by minute, forecast of weather, correct me if I'm wrong, they could change minute by minute, especially with snow blowing, if it's windy and snow's blowing, then it could really reduce the visibility. And so that, you just have to be really careful. If there's ice, snow, rain, slow down.
Well, something I'd be interested in hearing more about is what types of technology that you're using and how far out you can tell when winter weather is on its way.
The meteorological profession has really advanced over the last 20, 30 years. Our modeling is much better in the long range. I don't like to go out beyond 7 days. 7 days is we have some accuracy, we have some skill in our forecastability. And at least we know when there's going to be hazardous conditions out several days in advance. At the shorter time frame, we're also getting extremely impressive modeling. So we have a much higher ability to forecast over the next 6 to 12 hours than we did 10 or 15 years ago. So the Weather Service and meteorologists in general are getting much and much better at understanding impacts and understanding short-term hazards. And then we have a great system of observation, satellites improving, radars improving. So we really have a whole lot more skill. I know people always like to, bash the weatherman. They don't know what they're talking about. But the reality is, I think in this day and age, is that professional meteorologists have a lot of skill. Unfortunately, a lot of people are relying on weather apps where the information is just not there. So, I really suggest that people tune into the professionals. And especially the local media. I think we have a really good local media here in Chicago, and people should be finding out their information from a reputable source, not just their cell phone app. And that's where a lot of problems are.
Something I'd be interested to have you talk more about is wind chill. I'm sure most people who've lived here for any amount of time have heard wind chill, know basically what it is, but what sorts of factors determine what is the wind chill?
Wind chill is basically trying to estimate the time at which exposed flesh can experience frostbite and they can start freezing. So there's two things leading to that. Cold temperatures, but we as human beings have hair on our bodies and we wear clothing, and so cold temperatures, we can protect ourselves by keeping a layer of air over our skin, and we don't lose as much heat through conduction. But when you add wind to that, all that warm air that we're creating near our body gets blown away and replaced by much colder air. So wind exponentially will reduce the temperature of the skin. Skin can freeze at a much shorter time period. So we use terms such as wind chill advisory when it's a combination of wind, speed, and temperatures. And at a wind chill advisory, we're talking about a half an hour where frostbite can take over. When we start getting into wind chill warnings, you can have frostbite in as little as 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the actual wind chill temperature, or what a lot of people call the feels-like temperature. Mm-hmm. But that's really important. That is about exposed skin. So parents and who are concerned about their students going out to school need to be aware that you have to protect exposed skin, especially when the wind chills drop into the advisory or even worse, the warning criteria.
What would you consider to be kind of I don't know if there's an exact cutoff, but where temperatures get into the dangerous level?
You start getting into dangerous wind chills at about -15 and -20. And we'll be able to show here your viewers a wind chill idea of how long it would take to freeze. At -30, when the wind chill drops to -30, that's when we're really talking about extreme hazards. I'm working with a number of school districts, and we're working at ways to establish policy that at wind chill warning criteria, that's really when students ought not to be exposed if we're walking or they're waiting at the bus stop. So if school is in place when there is extremely cold temperatures, you have to realize how easily it is to get frostbite.
So that's another way that you're working with communities here?
Absolutely.
Okay, can you kind of go into, just out of curiosity, about wet snow, dry snow, what makes up kind of the different types of snow that we experience here?
Sure. When we're talking about snowfall, snow is going to form best in the cloud when temperatures are somewhere, 12 to 18 degrees below 0 Celsius. And that's when we get the heavy snowfall. But we're talking about the size of snowflakes. The colder the temperature is, the smaller the size of snowflakes, and you get snow that's easy to blow around. And it's not very heavy, when you're shoveling it. But when you start getting temperatures that are warmer, just like we see packing snow where we can make better snowballs, there's a lot of liquid water in there. So dry snow or light snow might be 15 to 20 inches of snowfall would be equivalent to 1 inch of rainfall. When we get into wet snow, we're looking at values that might be 10 or 8 to 1 or even 6 to 1. So if we could have 6 inches of snow, that's the equivalent of 1 inch of rainfall. And that's really heavy snow. So people going outside, a couple things that stress them. Number one, it's heavy. But number two, a lot of times when you're getting into it, you can get too much snowfall or snow on the shovel, and the moving of that is going to be much more restricted, and sometimes it won't even come off the shovel as well. So there's a lot of additional exertion when you're shoveling heavy snow or wet snow. Lighter snow, everybody knows it's really easy to get a weed blower or something like that to blow it off, but it's that snow that usually falls when the temperatures might be 30 to 34 degrees Fahrenheit.
Okay, now shoveling would be one area where you need to take precaution. How about preparing your home for the winter?
So we say winterize your home, winterize your vehicle. Now when we talk about winterizing your home, making sure your smoke detector is installed and it's got fresh batteries, making sure carbon monoxide has fresh batteries, because as you know, carbon monoxide, you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't see it. So it's very dangerous. So check those, check the chimney. People like to use fireplaces, but if your chimney is not clean, there's a chance that it could, start a fire. So you have to be really careful, and avoid using candles at home in your house. Avoid using a stove if the power goes out and you've got a gas stove. Don't use it, because that could cause problems with like carbon monoxide, and it's just very dangerous. And if you've got generator, make sure you've got the proper extension cords so that you could place the generator away from your home and it's safe to use. You don't want to use any outdoor equipment inside your home. And we talked about shoveling. If you're check your snow thrower, make sure it's in the proper condition. Like check it now before you get that snow event, so that you have time if it needs repair or something like that. And then when you're shoveling, just be mindful of what kind of snow it's falling. So if it's like the fluffy snow, maybe that's the time to go out and shovel your driveway, as opposed to waiting until it's the wet, heavy snow where it gets a little bit warmer. Because as you know, shoveling is something that could be very it takes up a lot of energy, and it could lead to dehydration and maybe even heart attack for people who are overexerting themselves. So it's really important to take breaks, and just having all that equipment with you in your house checked and make sure it's in proper working condition.
In the past, you've talked about having an emergency preparedness kit for your family tailored to your needs. What, in terms of winter gear, do you need to have?
Now, it's really important to have one in wintertime, especially if you're traveling in your car. That way you can have the necessary items, such as having jumper cables. Having jumper cables in your car, so that if your car battery breaks down, that you've got those available. But even before that, maybe take the vehicle to a mechanic, or if you can, check some of those things so that your vehicle is in proper condition. Your tires, the thread of the tires, it's in good shape. And then having sand or maybe even cat litter in your car, so that if there's no traction, at least you can sprinkle it and use it. But the basics: food, water, cell phone chargers. And nowadays with cell phone chargers, you can get those battery packs, and I keep one with me at all times. And I've got a couple of them in my bag. They stay charged wherever I go. I've got those, and I don't have to worry about finding an outlet. I can just plug it in, charge my cell phone. So that's really important. The technology is there, the resources are there. Just a matter of putting them all together in your emergency supply kit.
Okay, now Paul, I'd be interested to hear what types of conditions create some of the most hazardous driving.
Well, certainly the most hazardous driving is going to be the ones where you're getting freezing rain or freezing drizzle, or what people often call black ice, because it looks as though the pavement's wet, and people are driving along and they've had good traction, they hit an area where the temperatures have dropped just below freezing, and all this water becomes solid ice. And anyone who's ever driven on black ice knows there ain't no stopping. So just be aware that when the temperatures are dropping to 32 or nearby, you can hit these patches very suddenly. And sometimes people are driving very quick, they hit some ice, and their response is to hit the brake, and they tend to lose control of the steering, and then they spin out. So you'll see people who are driving along and they start spinning out. That's because they're trying to adjust. You know, in a situation like that, it's probably best to let off on the gas, make sure that you're controlling the car, and not try to stop unless there's impact out of the way. Also, if there is a significant icy condition, really you need to be off the road. And if you get off the road, if there's a major accident, people need to leave their cars and flee way off the scene. Do not try to stay with their car and protect this, because I've seen enough examples of many multi-car pileups. So ice is just one of those situations where you can hit rapidly. And you were talking about the same thing with visibility. Restrictions. All of a sudden a snow squall comes and it's down to zero visibility. At that point for visibility, you want to put your hazards on, keep your low beams on, and that flashing yellow is going to be the best way to signal people, and just try to keep yourself well positioned in between other drivers.
Here's another tip that I actually found out about is I know people like to use cruise control. That's something that I learned to never use when it's when there's snow or rain out there, because that could really cause some problems in not having control of the car. And we keep talking about keeping your distance. You know, slow down, keep your distance, and actually use the car in front of you to see how they're driving. Because if they see something happening in front of them, well, that gives you a heads up, and you'll have enough time to swerve or take a other route. And you're not, that way, if you're really up close to the other person and you're tailgating, well, you may not have that time to swerve or slow down. So.
Yeah, in one of the safety rules for people who are motorcyclists is a 4-second rule. Be aware of what's going to happen in the next 4 seconds. And you want to apply that same kind of principles to driving, maybe even 5 or 6 seconds. Be aware of where the cars are, and if you see them coming, start slowing down early. A lot of times people just think their car is going to stop because they've got a 4-wheel drive or anti-lock brakes, and that's not a smart way to drive.
Right, you'll definitely see people who have 4-wheel drive or a larger vehicle thinking they can take on what the conditions are.
And you'll see even the 4-wheel vehicles, they're spinning. I mean, when there's black ice or nothing, you can't stop it no matter what kind of a vehicle you've got.
Absolutely.
Paul, could you talk a little bit about, there are a few different weather phenomena that I think people might have some questions about. First of all, when it looks like a rainbow when it's extremely cold, sundogs?
Yeah, we get these things called sundogs, and a lot of times you'll look up in the sky, especially as the sun's approaching the horizon, maybe near sunset. You'll have some high cirrus clouds. There'll be these bright patches of rainbow on either side of the sun. Those are called parhelia, or the more common slang name is called sundogs. And they're just part of the way that light travels through icy conditions and refracts into the prism of the rainbow. So it's kind of pretty, and we'll see it a number of times, especially as we go through the fall and winter months.
Okay. I just thought that was something interesting that seemed to be in the news in the past year.
Be aware of it. Yeah, they're out there all the time.
How about thunder snow?
Thunder snow. See, in the wintertime, the atmosphere is typically stable, and in order to get thunderstorms, we need strong rising air within the cloud features. On rare occasions, we'll have such a vigorous system that the atmosphere can actually generate some instability, and as it accelerates up, there's charge separated, and there can be lightning associated with snow. When there's thunder snow, a couple things are probably going on. Number one, it's probably accumulating at extremely fast rates. I've seen anywhere from 2 to 6 to 7 inches an hour.
Wow.
If there's a thunder snow event. And when there's thunder snow, you're talking about a vigorous snow system. That's one of those ones where they're rare, but when they happen, they're going to come down well. Usually, the lightning's not much of a threat. It's not very often, but you can get lightning and thunder. And there's also a lot of anecdotal evidence that The lightning tends to be pink or green. You get some interesting colors when the lightning flashes in snowstorms.
Lots of interesting things that can happen in this area. Now, if you had one piece of advice that you would give to people as far as being safe on the roads, being safe in the winter, what would it be?
I would say always take the power of nature seriously. And that can be true whether it's winter weather or severe weather, or flash flooding kills more people than any other weather event. People think they can do something against moving water. They can't. Moving water is going to win. Cars are going to become buoyant. They're going to flip over. Snow and ice can be a real hazard. And many, many, many people die and have major accidents. And most of those could be avoided with precautionary driving. So just always take the weather seriously.
And Summit, I know your office does a lot to try and educate the public, get out messages about severe weather that's happening. Is there somewhere where they can go for more information?
Yeah, so residents can go to our website. It's protectdupage.org. And if they have a social media account, they can follow us on Twitter as well as Facebook and watch videos on our YouTube channel. One thing I'd like to add is people, we talk about traveling and just being prepared. Have a family communications plan. So if you are traveling, visiting a family friend or someone, let them know that you plan on taking this route and you'll get to your destination by X amount of time. And so if something does happen and you're not there by a certain time, they can try to contact you. And if you are driving and your car breaks down and you're stranded, please make sure to have your cell phones charged, because people think that they can get out of the vehicle, walk, and go call nearby. In this area, we're pretty close to places, but still, sometimes it's really dangerous to get out of the car. So make sure you have your cell phones so that you can contact people and let them know that you're stranded or you need help. So it's really important to have that communication plan with your family.
Well, I think you've both shared a lot of good things to think about and for everyone to be prepared for winter. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you.